They're getting some breaking news in the investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie.
There are some puzzling new developments tonight in the ongoing search for Nancy Guthrie.
This hour, because there's been a development in the search for Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie.
The first question investigators asked had nothing to do with what was found inside the house. It had everything to do with the days before anyone even knew to look. February 1st, 2026. Tucson, Arizona. Catalina Foothills. An 84-year-old woman vanishes from a home she had known for years. No broken locks. No shattered glass. No signs of anything that looked like a struggle. Just a woman who was there and then was not. And the last person confirmed to have been with her was her own son-in-law. That detail alone put him inside the investigation. But what pulled his name to the center was not that night. It was everything that came after. While ground teams moved through open land and helicopters swept the desert, while her family stood in front of cameras asking the public for help, he remained quiet. Not the kind of quiet that grief creates. Something different. Behavioral investigators noticed it, not as proof of anything, as a pattern that did not fit the people around him. And in a missing persons case, behavior is not separate from evidence. It is part of it. To understand how the investigation shifted, you have to start with the timeline. Nancy Guthrie had spent the evening at her daughter Annie's home. Dinner, conversation, an ordinary visit that gave no indication of what was coming. At some point later that night, Tommaso's sign drove her back to her residence. He said he waited until she was inside. He saw the garage door open. He saw her enter. Then he drove away. That moment became the last confirmed visual of Nancy Guthrie alive. What followed those 41 minutes is what investigators have been working backward from ever since. Her doorbell camera went dark at 1:47 in the morning. Her pacemaker, a device that logs cardiac activity continuously, transmitted its final signal at 2:28 a.m. 41 minutes. That gap is not wide, but it does not need to be, because within those 41 minutes, both a digital system and a human life stopped registering. When forensic teams entered the home, they were not looking for chaos. They were looking for what did not match. And what they found was the absence of forced entry. No damage to entry points. No evidence of intrusion from outside. That single detail redirected the investigation because it removed an entire category of possibility. Someone who does not need to force their way in either has access or has a reason to be there. And that distinction matters more than almost anything else in a case like this. The camera system complicated things further. It had not malfunctioned. It had been accessed remotely using valid login credentials. That is not a technical failure. That is knowledge. Whoever reached that system did not stumble into it. They understood how it worked, when to use it, and how to use it without triggering anything. That level of precision points in one direction. Familiarity. At the same time, the vehicle Tommaso had driven that night was seized early in the investigation. Not as a conclusion, but as a data source. Because vehicles carry things people cannot account for. Transfer evidence. Biological material. Timestamps and movement records that exist independent of what anyone says out loud. As media coverage expanded, journalist Ashley Banfield reported that law enforcement sources had already identified Tommaso as a central person of interest. Not charged, not accused publicly, but present in the internal conversation of the case. The distinction matters, but once a name reaches the public, the perception around it moves faster than any clarification can follow. Shortly after, images appeared of Tommaso and Annie leaving their home. He partially covered his face. She kept her head down. Separately, those choices mean nothing definitive. Together, they added to a pattern the public was already forming on its own. Investigators, meanwhile, were building a different kind of structure. Quietly, methodically, warrants were executed. The home was processed. Devices were collected. Statements were taken. And then, something happened that should have changed the conversation entirely. Authorities announced the family had been formally cleared, not tentatively, not partially, but cleared through interviews, forensic review, and DNA comparison. That announcement entered the public space, and then mostly disappeared from it. Because once suspicion takes hold, official statements rarely move it. Behind that public narrative, the forensic picture was more complicated. DNA had been recovered from the scene, but not in a usable single-source form. It was a mixed sample, meaning more than one contributor was present. Separating those profiles is not fast. It requires software, time, and reconstruction methods that are still being refined. But the output, when it comes, does not suggest. It places. And in a controlled environment like a private home, placement carries enormous weight. Cellular mapping was building its own architecture. Thousands of devices reduced to patterns. Not every phone near a tower is a lead, but some of them become one when their behavior changes. When they appear in the same location on multiple dates before an incident. When they go silent during a critical window. When they move outward afterward, in a specific direction, away from the neighborhood and toward less visible terrain. And that is where something in the data became significant. Because devices were appearing not just on February 1st. They were appearing on January 11th and January 24th, dates the family later asked the public to focus on specifically. Dates that were flagged inside the investigation long before the public understood why they mattered. January 11th carries its own weight. A masked figure had appeared at Nancy Guthrie's front door. No attempt to enter. No confrontation. Just presence. Investigators with experience in planned operations read that very specifically. It is not a failed attempt. It is reconnaissance. You do not begin with the event. You begin by studying the environment, by understanding its timing, its responses, its patterns. January 11th was a test of something that came later. January 24th represents a second alignment. Something was happening in that window, even if the public does not yet know exactly what. But 3 dates forming a sequence before a single event does not happen randomly. Sequences indicate intent. That shifts the entire frame of the investigation. Because if February 1st was the conclusion and not the beginning, then everything before it was preparation. And preparation transforms how evidence is understood because it changes the question from what happened to when did this actually start. The nearby rental property and construction activity in the surrounding area drew investigative attention for the same reason. Both create legitimate cover. A rented residence gives someone a reason to exist in a neighborhood where unfamiliar faces are noticed. Construction work provides movement and irregular hours that go unremarked. In a place like Catalina Foothills, the only way to operate without drawing attention is to appear to belong. And both elements provided exactly that. Investigators returned to the neighborhood for a second round. Not for general canvassing. Residents noted something different about it. Federal agents were asking for names. Specific names. Not did you see anything unusual, but who was here, who had access, who worked in this area? That is not a broad question. That is a targeted one. And targeted questions mean the investigation has already moved past the open phase. Where this stands now is somewhere between structure and resolution. The timeline is fixed. The access question has narrowed to familiarity. The digital patterns repeat. The movement data aligns. The DNA work continues with profiles that have not yet fully separated but will. When they do, the case changes in a single moment because DNA does not offer theories. It offers answers. The investigation is not expanding anymore. It is closing. Not quickly, not publicly, but in the way that serious cases move when they are approaching an endpoint. Every piece that has been collected is being tested against everything else. And when that process reaches its conclusion, it will need to hold completely. But none of that answers the one question that has not changed since the night this began. Where is Nancy Guthrie? That question is the reason the investigation continues. Not the headlines, not the theories, not the behavior patterns. Her. A person, not a case number. And until she is found, everything else is still an unfinished sentence. If you have any information at all, regardless of how insignificant it seems to you, now is the time. Call the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI. That is 1-800-225-5324. Submit a tip directly at tips.fbi.gov. There is a reward totaling $1,100,000. $1 million from the family, $100,000 from the FBI. You can remain completely anonymous. You do not need proof. You do not need certainty. You provide the detail. Investigators build from it. Because in a case like this, one conversation overheard, one vehicle remembered, one face that did not quite fit, can be the thing that brings her home. This is not over. Not until she is found.